Module 11, the cardiovascular system. Blood types. If you've ever been with someone who donated blood, you likely learned about their blood type. That's because humans have one of 4 blood types: A, B, AB, and O. These different types have to do with the molecules that are found on the surface of the erythrocytes. They are called antigens. An antigen is a protein or other molecule that, when introduced into the body, triggers the production of an antibody. Your body makes antibodies in order to fight off foreign materials. Antigens trigger an immune response from the body. So, type A blood is blood with erythrocytes that have A antigens on their surfaces. Type B blood is blood containing erythrocytes that have B antigens on their surfaces. Type AB blood has erythrocytes with both A and B antigens. And type O blood has erythrocytes without any antigens on its erythrocytes' surfaces. Now think about this. If you have type A blood, that means you have A antigens on your red blood cells. So your body does not make antibodies against A antigens. It couldn't, or you would be in bad shape. Your body would be fighting itself. But your body would produce antibodies against B antigens. That is why if a person with type A blood, for example, needs a blood transfusion, their blood is typed and then matched with a donor blood that is also type A. If the wrong blood is received, say type B blood, then type B antibodies would attack the B antigens on the new blood cells by binding to them and connecting to other cells by forming bridges. That means that clumps of blood cells would form, blocking the blood vessels. So a person with type A blood only produces antibodies for B antigens. A person with type B blood only produces antibodies for A antigens. What about a person with type AB blood? His body cannot produce antibodies for either antigen, or the red blood cells will be attacked. So no antibodies are made for either antigen. And lastly, a person with type O blood produces antibodies for both A and B antigens.
People donate blood for those who need it, and it's important for blood banks to keep track of the blood type so that the blood match is a good one for the recipient. Now, people who have type O blood are considered the universal donors. That's because they're able to donate their blood to any person with any blood type. So, for example, a person who has type A blood, they produce antibodies against the type B antigen. And so it's okay for them to receive type O blood because type O erythrocytes do not have any antigens on them. And it's the same thing for people with type B blood and type AB blood. All of those people can receive type O blood. Now, folks that have type O blood can only receive type O blood from a donor. That's because they produce antigens or antibodies for both the A and the B antigens. But that's okay because type O blood is the most common blood type.
You received your blood type based on the genes you inherited from your parents. And studying the genetics of blood types is pretty interesting. There are 3 alleles for blood type: A, B, and O. The A and B alleles are dominant alleles, and the O allele is recessive. Thus, if you receive an A allele from one parent and an O allele from the other, you will have type A blood. If you receive an A allele from one parent and a B allele from the other, you will have type AB blood. The only way to have type O blood is if you receive an O allele from both parents. That is because it's a recessive trait. You have to have a recessive allele from both parents to show that recessive O trait. Well, there's another antigen to consider when talking about blood cells. It is the Rh antigen. The designation Rh comes from when scientists were studying rhesus monkeys and blood types. They identified this antigen during those studies. So erythrocytes either have the Rh antigen or they don't. If they do, the blood is Rh positive. If they don't have the Rh antigen on the surface, then the blood is Rh negative. Most people are Rh positive, having the Rh antigen on their red blood cells. Blood type identification notes the Rh factor by adding a positive or negative sign to a person's ABO blood type. For example, a person who has type A blood and also has the Rh antigen on his red blood cells will have A positive blood. A person who has type O blood and does not have the Rh antigen on his red blood cells will have O negative blood. Just like the A and B antigens, the body can produce antibodies against the Rh antigen. If a person is Rh positive, though, their body will not produce the antibody that fights the Rh antigen. But folks who do not have Rh antigens on their red blood cells, or those who are Rh negative, can produce antibodies to fight off the Rh antigens. Now, people who can produce antibodies against the Rh antigen don't produce them unless they have been previously exposed to Rh positive blood. Well, how can that happen? Of course, they could receive the wrong blood type accidentally during a blood transfusion, but that's unlikely due to so many tests and safeguards set in place. Even if it were to happen, it would not be a serious issue because the production of antibodies is a pretty slow process, and red blood cells don't live very long anyways. But if a person were to get yet another incorrect blood transfusion, then there would be problems. This is because the Rh antigen antibodies have already been made by the Rh negative person. So when his body receives another invasion of Rh antigens from Rh positive blood, then a transfusion reaction will occur. This is only a concern for Rh negative folks because people with Rh positive blood don't make antibodies that fight the Rh antigen. Well, there's another situation to consider regarding the Rh antigen, and it has to do with pregnancies. You see, if a mother is Rh negative, possible problems can occur if she carries a child who is Rh positive. This is because a little bit of the baby's blood could possibly mix with her blood. This, of course, does not harm the baby because the baby is Rh positive, he or she won't produce antibodies that fight off the Rh antigen. But if the mother receives some of the baby's Rh positive blood, her body will make anti-Rh antibodies. Those antibodies are harmless in the mother's body because the little bit of blood she got from the baby will not last long. But if she becomes pregnant again with another Rh positive child, then that child is at risk for hemolytic disease of the newborn. You see, during pregnancy, the anti-Rh antibodies that were already in the mother's blood can cross over the placenta, which is an organ where the mother and the developing baby's bodies exchange materials. These antibodies can attack the unborn baby's Rh antigens on his or her erythrocytes. This situation can range from a small effect or a serious one, based on how many antibodies have been produced by the mother. With each subsequent Rh positive child she has, there's a greater chance of mixing of blood along with more anti-Rh antibody production. Thus, the more Rh positive children she has, the higher the risk to the next developing infant she carries. Now, this sounds a bit scary, but remember, first of all, about 85% of women are Rh positive, unable to make anti-Rh antibodies. And if a woman is Rh negative, it's likely that some of her children will be Rh negative too. So having multiple Rh positive children and building up a large supply of anti-Rh antibodies is rare. Additionally, if a newborn does have hemolytic disease, there's treatment available. The Rh positive infant is given a transfusion of its ABO type with Rh negative antigen. So if a baby with hemolytic disease of the newborn has an A positive blood type, he or she is given A negative blood so that the A negative cells replace the A positive cells that are attacked by the anti-Rh antibodies. This way the baby is able to get nutrient and oxygen carrying red blood cells, and it gives the baby's body time for the anti-Rh antibodies from the mother to gradually break down. The baby won't make more because he or she is Rh positive. And it's even possible to prevent this disease from occurring in the first place. You see, if a mother is Rh negative, then immediately after the birth of her child, the baby's umbilical cord is typed. If it is Rh negative, then treatment isn't necessary. If the baby's Rh positive, though, the mother is injected with anti-Rh antibodies. Why is that? The injected anti-Rh will rapidly attack the Rh positive cells that might have made their way into the mother's blood from the newborn during childbirth. Thus, the mother's immune system won't be turned on to make its long-lasting version of anti-Rh. The injected anti-Rh breaks down in a few weeks, and her body doesn't realize that it had been infected. This prevents her from being sensitized to the Rh antigen. Why is this situation not important if the mother and baby have different ABO blood types? After all, if a mother has type A blood, for example, and the baby has type B blood, wouldn't her body produce anti-B antibodies against the B antigens? Well, the antibodies for A and B antigens are much, much larger than the antibodies for the Rh antigen. Thus, they're too large to cross over the placenta and cause any potential problems.